Hey, and welcome to SAP Tech Bytes. My name is Kevin Musik, and I'm a developer advocate for SAP. And today's topic is going to be the FioriARKit Open Source repository. The SAP BTP SDK for iOS team released a brand new open source repository on GitHub, including Fiori design guideline conform UI controls, which can be used in an ARKit use case. So with these controls, you can enhance your business applications with ARKit capabilities and features. So let's see how this works. So here we see the Cloud SDK iOS FioriARKit GitHub repository. We can see we have the current releases 1.1.0 and here's the whole project. So I would recommend at least starting this project or cloning it to your local hard drive, so you got the newest changes right there. We can find a nice README summary down here, an example video on what you could do. So you see we have these AR cards showing up depending on where we tap in this artificial reality, augmented reality environment. Of course, we're going to need a reality composer to set up our spheres, to have our anchor points. And I'm going to show you that in a second. And you've got like all the information, how you would initialize that, and so on. So there are different strategies for loading these files. We're going with the USD-C strategy. I've just taken a stripped down version of the example app from the GitHub repository, and I'm going to also use the example USD-C file. So let's just start. I have my Xcode project here. I've previously created that before this session, and this is just a basic Swift UI app, and you can see this QR code here. We're going to scan that later on with our app, and our anchor points will appear, and we can swipe through some AR cards just for demo purposes. So the example RC USD set file here defines these anchor points. These spheres are the anchor points for these little information icons to appear. So if we we'll go back real quick to this video here, so zoom in, see that better. You can see there they are, these points here. So these are implemented as spheres, and ARKit needs them as anchor points to identify where to put this icon in the real world, so we can properly augment that. Then going through the rest of the project, so what I did is I just stole a couple of classes from the open source repository, like the file manager extensions. This is just basically an extension to make loading these reality files and the USD set files more easily. So nothing special here. As well as we got some models. So the card item is just this card item model, and this is a protocol provided by the SDK team, by the API. And then you basically just define the ID, title, description text, detail image, action text, icon, and you write a public initializer for that, and that's all. And then we have this string identifying card item. That's basically the same deal. It's from card item model, and we're going to use that to later on save information about our identified object. And yeah, we have these tests.swift files. So these are mock data for the car engine we've seen before. And we have the same thing as JSON as well, because we will load this JSON and then use that as our base. So how do we actually implement this? And this is fairly easy. So I have the FioriARKit Tech Bytes app, and this will display an ARKart's USD set file content view. This will contain the definition of our augmented view we're going to display. Here we have an implementation of the app delegate, just to again preload these files when the app starts up, so we don't have to do this during some later process. It's just like you're starting the app up, we're loading the files into the runtime, and then we can use that. So let's implement that SwiftUI view, and calling this ARKart's USD set file content view. And we are not going to use the preview provider, but we're going to import the FioriARKit module. So what I did is I used the Swift package manager under, where is it, file, and then Swift packages, and then you can add a package dependency, and this is just the URL to the repository, and then it loads the ARKit package and all its dependencies as well. You see we have this Fiori SwiftUI in here as well, and then you can just import those. Important before I continue is that you plug in your physical phone, right? Because that FioriARKit is built for physical phone only, for the iOS device only, so simulator won't work. The code will not compile. So select your iPhone or iPad up here, and then the compiler won't complain because it can work with the FioriARKit, which is built for a physical iOS device. First, we got to define our state object. So the state object is a property wrapper type provided by SwiftUI, which instantiates an observable object, which is important for the data binding in SwiftUI. So we can say state object, and here we are going to store the AR model. And this is an AR annotation view model, and this is there for managing the ARKart's experience. The ARKarts are the cards you've seen in the video before, but this is important here. So AR annotation view model, and this is generic, so this is a decodable card item. And instantiate it right away, and then of course we gotta define the image file for our demo here, which is the QR image, and that is this one here. This is the QR image, and then we can just say single image AR card view. So that's our content view for displaying the cards and the markers we use after discovering the anchor points. The anchor points again are the spheres we've positioned in the example RC, these ones here. And Right, so the process is going to be scanning the QR code, and then from there the spheres appear, so the anchor points appear, and then we can tap on these to display different kinds of those annotation cards. So single image AR card view, and we instantiate that with the AR model, image, and card action. So we say the AR model is our AR model, and our image is a new image with instantiated with the file name. Oops. So the image file name and the card action itself. You can implement here. So right now we're not going to implement deep card actions here, but what you can do is if the user scans this QR code and the anchor points appear and the cards appear and the user would tap on that card, you could implement an action there. So maybe some process which has to start, or opening some documentation in case of, like, if you imagine that engine, this car engine, to be there, and then there's the oil filter, and you tap on that, and then maybe it pops up a video showing how to change the oil filter, or any other, like putting in washer fluid or something like that. So card actions are actions you can implement if the user interacts with that annotation card. So here we just print out the card ID. So we just know which card got tapped on. And of course, this is closure, so we say card ID in. And from there, we just say, when this single image or AR card view appears, we perform the load initial data from USB set file. And the implementation is fairly easy. So load initial data USB file. And in here, we just basically load the USDZ file, which is in the bundle, and take that and put that into the loading strategy, and providing the file plus the JSON data to the API of the FioriARKit package. And then the API will do all the magic behind the scenes. So we have our ARKit scene properly being displayed and interactive. So that's great. We don't have to do much ourselves. We just define our anchor points in our USD set file or reality file, or whatever loading strategy you're going to choose. We load that into runtime from the bundle, and then feed it to the API, and the rest will be done by the package itself. So let USD set file path, and we have the file manager. We just say default get documents directory, and then we do append path component, which is again the file manager dot USDZ files, and we're already giving here this the file name. The file name is the example rc.usdz file, and we got our USDZ file path. Now we're going to create the URL, the UI image, and the JSON URL, and we use a guard statement for that, just in case these initializers return nil. So guardlet, the absolute USD set path, which is URL, and we just initialize it with string, and this would be with local file storage, so file, and then the USD set file path, and also the anchor image. So our anchor image is the QR code, of course. This is what ARKit should detect. From there, the process starts. So anchor image is the UI image, and then with the named initializer, and this is the image file name, and lastly the JSON URL. So the JSON URL is just the definition of the data we're going to display. Not the URL itself, but the JSON file. So this is in our main bundle. URL for resource with extension, and we call that tests. So if we go into utils again, we see tests with the extension JSON, and then in case this is not working, we say return. Now we put everything together. So we have all the paths, and we have the anchor image, we have the JSON URL. Now we can actually initialize the JSON data and create the loading strategy, and that's pretty much it. So here we say JSON data, and we can say try data, contents of JSON URL. Also, we're going to do that strategy equals try USDC file strategy. So here we see this is coming from the FioriARKit package. So the USDC set file strategy is defined as a loading strategy that uses the Reality Composer app. After creating the Reality Composer scene, the entities in that are going to be loaded. And we can just initialize this to see the full documentation. So here again, after creating the Reality Composer scene, the entities in the scene correlate to a real-world location relative to the image or object anchor. This strategy wraps the anchors that represents these locations with the card item models. So the card item models are our card item and the string identifying card item. So they correspond to a screen annotation struct, which is our sphere. So it can load this data or JSON data into the AR annotation view model, which appears on the onAppear. So this is basically bringing everything together. We've defined our models, our USD set file, our anchor image, our test data, which is going to be displayed in the cards, all bringing it together in that file strategy. So this is pretty amazing because there's a lot of code behind that, and you don't really have to write much here. You just load all the files, you define it, throw it all into the file strategy, and the API does the rest for you. So we initialize that with the JSON data, the anchor image, the physical width, and the USD set file path. Let's go. So JSON data, simple, it's our JSON data. Anchor image, again, pretty simple. We just use our initialized anchor image. Physical width, you just gotta play around with these values here, but I just go with 0.1. And the file path for the USD set is the absolute USD set path. And with that, we got our file strategy created. Now, what we do is we tell the AR model to load our file strategy. So we just feed it the strategy, and that's it. That's all you got to do here to get your first example of the ARKit, FioriARKit up and running. So just do the catch here, and that's all the compiler needs to actually go forward. So let's just recompile this and see if there are any errors left. All right, what we see here is our initial view. So you can see we have the corners here showing where the QR code has to go in, some text, and then a button here. So you can say begin to scan. And then we're scanning this AR code. So you see that was successful. And our AR anchor points appear, or our spheres appear for the annotation. So let me just see if I can just go back a little bit so you see a little bit more. So right now we have the information button, or the information AR button selected, and we see that card down there is being displayed. We can also say we want to have the calendar, and you see the card automatically goes to the calendar card. But we can also just go through ourselves and select things here, and you see that gets reflected in the AR as well. So this is fairly simple and really cool. You see that connection being drawn to the AR card, and I think this is a really cool technology, and the team has done a great job bringing the first controls, the first ARKit controls to you. Of course, with that QR code, this is not like super crazy impressive example compared to the video we've seen in the GitHub repository where you see the car engine, but you can imagine what you can do with these controls and the simplicity of the implementation. And that's super cool. So I want to just quickly go back and highlight what we've done. So you go in and you create your spheres, and these spheres represent these icons you've seen in the demo. And then you define your model, and you just use card item model and just implement that like this. Super easy. Then you provide your data through JSON, for example, in this case. So that can come from a backend service. All right, so you scan user tabs, send the backend request, JSON exec, you can use that. And you just got to implement, what is that, like 30 lines of code max. So just one content view here to load the data, instantiate everything, and just feed it to the AR model, and you're good to go. That's all you got to do. And that's pretty cool, I think.
Great. We've implemented our first small ARKit ready application displaying some AR annotation cards with some data being fed from some JSON we have locally stored in our project. Of course, this can come from a backend service. And I would encourage you to check out that repository. You can find the link to the repository in the description of this YouTube video. And check out this repository, start it, clone it, and just go in and try it out yourself. To take the example app, manipulate some stuff there, and maybe build your own reality composer scene just to play around with the ARKit capabilities. But I think it's an amazing project, and it's a great API which simplifies ARKit to you like crazy, because you don't have to go in and do any 3D modeling yourself or anything like that. You just define the spheres ARKit knows where to display the little icons, and then the API does all the rest for you. And that should enhance your business apps greatly if you decide to go with ARKit.